Siyabulela, Fumane. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's 14th Policy Dialogue Forum follows from the one that was done 2 years ago in Kigali, in Rwanda, during COVID-19. As I am about to introduce the minister to the stage, to introduce the deputy president, there are interpretation services, as UNESCO usually does. In Arabic, we say Assalamu alaikum. In English, we say good morning. In Spanish, we say buenos dias. And in French, we say bonjour. But because of the rotation principle of the teacher task force, South Africa chairs the chairpersonship with Germany. So it is apt for me to say Guten Morgen and Dumelang, Sanbona, Molweni, in true South African style. The theme this year, as the minister will just address now, is dignifying the dignity of the people that we celebrate as we converge. Is because there are some of us like me who were born by domestic workers. But because our teachers believed in us, that we could be anything, therefore it is up that as we converge, we give dignity to the profession, the only profession in the world that has its footprints in the past of children as they come to school, in the present as we mold them, and in their future as we build what they could possibly become. I will invite the Minister of South Africa, Honorable NG Matsie Motshekga, to do the welcoming remarks and to welcome the Deputy President on stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Dr. Mbude. I'll thank the choir after it has left. DP, these are part of our music school's estate forts. And you'll ask me, why did I take them out of class? Teachers are going to have to do a catch-up for the 2 hours they've lost. And that's a principle we use, that if we take them out of class for 2 hours, teachers have to help them catch up. But these are your Gauteng teams. Deputy DG, Assistant DG, we have a whole estate fort program in the country where they compete from circuit, districts, and national. We produce opera singers like Yende, who was singing at King Charles' wedding. It comes from our program. It's this school program which produces all those opera singers. So, Your Excellency, Deputy President, Mr. Paul Mashatile, His Excellency Mohammed Belhossein, Commissioner for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation of the African Union Commission, Honorable Ms. Nancy Lorena Morocho Kwambiko, Deputy Minister of Education in Ecuador, Honorable Mr. John Tim Fojo, Deputy Minister of General Education in Ghana, Honorable Ms. Stefania Giannini, Assistant Director General of Education at UNESCO, Honorable Deputy Minister of Education in our country, Dr. Mhaule, Dr. Hey Kuhn, Co-Chair of the International Teacher Task Team for Education 2030 Germany, as well as co-chair from South Africa. Our Director General, Mr. Matanzi Mamweli, Permanent Secretaries and Director Generals in attendance, representatives from provincial education departments, principals of teacher unions, I saw a number of them around. Thank you very much for coming. Teacher education and development stakeholders, representatives also here, our teachers and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Our late former President of the Republic, which we always quote him, Dr. Nelson Mandela once highlighted that, I quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." And I'm sure if he was present here, despite the disruptions of COVID-19 in different parts of the country, he will be very happy to see us here. His Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, to convene the Transforming Education Summit in 2022 for countries to discuss countries of the world, how we can work together to strengthen our education system. And this was in recognition of the power that education has to transform our lives and to reboot economies. And indeed, I'm very excited that the report of the high-level panel emanating from the Transforming Education Summit will be launched today in our country. And that for us, it is an honor, and we really appreciate and want to express our gratitude for the opportunity. But it is also fitting that we're hosting this forum during the year which has been declared by the African Union as the Year of Education. And we are pleased to have the Honorable Commissioner from the African Union and hope that he will be able to continue to guide us in terms of what is expected of us as countries to celebrate this year. The African Union has identified education as a key vehicle that will enable African countries to achieve their sustainable development goals, as well as the African Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. So we cannot talk about improving the quality of education without talking about improving the quality of lives of our teachers. So it is therefore befitting that we have our teachers amongst us so that we do not discuss teacher issues without the involvement of teachers. The available qualified teachers is the engine that must drive the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063. So it is therefore important for us as countries to celebrate and appreciate teachers and the teaching profession, to invest and support the development of our teachers and to ensure that they work in safe and conducive environments. In conclusion, Chair, let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you in the Republic of South Africa and wish you very fruitful deliberations. It is my wish that you use your stay in South Africa to enjoy our hospitality, our beautiful people, our beautiful country, and explore opportunities for future visits. Program Director, allow me to really introduce our Deputy President. It is for me a distinct honor and privilege to introduce him and welcome him as our guest of honor, who is, as I mentioned before, His Excellency Deputy President Paul Mashatile. Comrade Paul, or DP, we are indebted to you for making the time to join us. Our president was born here in Gauteng. Should tell the date, but men don't mind telling the date, it's only us. So he was born on the 21st of October 1961 here in Gauteng. And he's always been a political activist in various positions. I know him from COSAS, whilst he was studying at Alexander. From there, he was the first president of Alexander Youth Congress. And I'm told the office didn't want me to read all this. I said, I'm going to do it. So he also served as the General Secretary of the United Democratic Front before the unbanning and the re-establishment of ANC structures. So due to his political activism, he went through many state of emergencies under the president, under State President Botha. He spent more than 4 years in prison without trial. While in prison, he pursued his academic studies. He was appointed the General Secretary of the Communist Party, a position he held from 1992 to 2010. He was also head of the political education of the ANC Pretoria Witwatersrand. In addition, our president has also risen through the ranks. As I said, I'm not sure if there's any structure he didn't serve on, from branch to region to province. He was my provincial secretary for a very long time, a position he held for 6 years. And then he became the deputy chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng. He's got large experience in governance, where he served in several positions. He was, in 1994, he was the leader of the House. He became the MEC for Safety and Security, MEC for Housing, MEC for Finance and Economic Affairs. In 2008, 2009, he was the Premier of Gauteng here. Then he was appointed the Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture, and later made the Minister of Arts and Culture, and later then the Chairperson of the Appropriation Commission in Parliament between 2014 and 2016. In 2017, the ANC elected him as the National Treasurer General of the ANC at its 54th conference. He was then sworn as the Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa on the 7th of March 2023, and following his appointment to his role, to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, as Deputy President, he's done quite a number of responsibilities: leader of government currently in Parliament, leader of government efforts to fast-track land reform and coordinate government programs, implement rapid response, assist the President in many, many activities, and has served also as a convoy of the President in many ways, responsible for promoting social cohesion. And our Deputy President also chairs cabinet committees as delegated by the President. So, Deputy President, can I invite you to come and address you? And thank you again for making the time to really come and be with us. Thank you very much.
Minister of Basic Education in the Republic of South Africa, Mrs. Angie Motshekga, Matsie, my sister. That's the special way that I address her, Matsie. Let me also recognize Deputy Minister of Basic Education in the Republic of South Africa, Dr. Regina Motshekga, UNESCO Assistant Director General, Ms. Stefania Giannini, Deputy Minister of Education from Ghana, Mr. John Mtin Faju, Deputy Minister of Education from Ecuador, Ms. Nancy Lorena Morocho Quimbiaco, African Union Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology and Innovation, Mr. Mohammed Bolhene, Ambassador of Finland to South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho and Mauritius, Ms. Anne Lamila, Vice President of Education International Africa Region, Mr. Mugwena Maluleka, Director General of Basic Education in the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Matanzima Mweli, leaders of various teacher unions and all education stakeholders, distinguished guests, Sanbonani, Dumelang, Abshen, Molweni. Good morning to all esteemed guests and participants of the 14th Policy Dialogue Forum of the International Task Force of Teachers for Education 2030, who have traveled from every corner of the globe to be here in South Africa today. Welcome to South Africa. We invite you to explore and savor the wonders of this province of Gauteng, a province renowned for its rich political heritage and adorned with gold. Let me start by taking you back. Some of you might recall that in September 2022, our Minister of Basic Education, Ms Angelina Motshekga, was requested to serve on a high-level panel convened by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, on the recommendation of the International Teacher Task Force for Education 2030. In June 2023, the United Nations Secretary General established the high-level panel on the teaching profession as a follow-up to the 2022 Transformation Education Summit. Little did we know that the 14th International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030 Policy Dialogue Forum will be hosted by South Africa in 2024 under the theme Addressing Global Teacher Shortages, Dignifying, Diversifying, and Valorizing the Profession. Let me thank the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030 for recognizing South Africa as a key player in the journey to achieving quality education for all by 2030. As South Africa, we feel privileged to have been afforded the opportunity to co-chair the Steering Committee for Teacher Task Force in collaboration with Germany. Furthermore, the dedication of the Teacher Task Force to raising awareness, expanding knowledge, and supporting countries on the questions and themes raised in Target 4C of Sustainable Development Goal 4, that is SDG 4, is commendable. South Africa welcomes the theme of this policy dialogue and is hoping to learn from the good practices that will be shared at this forum this next 3 days. As we gather here today, we are faced with a stark reality, a shortage of qualified and motivated teachers across the globe. This shortage not only jeopardizes the quality of education, but also undermines our collective efforts to achieve the SDG 4 goal of inclusive and equitable quality education for all. Instead of disregarding the situation and continuing as if everything is going according to plan, we need to acknowledge the problem and devise a solution that is both effective and efficient. We need to acknowledge the inherent worth of teachers as a crucial role they play in shaping the future of our nation is critical. Besides teaching and imparting knowledge to the future generation, teachers play a crucial role in nurturing, fostering critical thinking, inspiring dreams, and pushing the limits of human potential. We thus owe it to these titans of our society to recognize, honor, empower, and value them as well as the job that they do. Most importantly, significant consideration must be made on how we should improve their working conditions and remuneration as a way of appreciating their hard work so that they can be able to fulfill their important task without getting discouraged. Additionally, it is critical that we never lose sight of the fact that we are currently living in a digital age, and we must also ensure that our educators can effectively utilize new technologies to remain relevant and efficient in this current digital age. Ladies and gentlemen, to increase participation in this profession, we should provide competitive compensation and recognize teachers' achievements. This may be achieved by creating a culture that promotes excellence and creativity, as well as cultivating a sense of pride and purpose amongst our educators. We have to do whatever it takes to attract young people with bright minds to this profession and address the issue of teacher shortages. As we gather here at this conference, we anticipate that the 6 outcomes of the 2024 Policy Dialogue Forum will present opportunities for improvement, develop insights and policy recommendations, and strengthen methods of addressing this problem of teacher shortages. We also welcome the high-level panel report as well as the launch of the global report on teacher shortages. South Africa is optimistic that the Policy Dialogue Forum will untangle solutions for addressing the contents of these reports. In the context of South Africa, which is not unique to other countries, this is instigated by a mismatch between the demands for critical subjects as opposed to universities' supply. More teachers are produced for further education and training. The further education and training band than for general education and training band. This situation has necessitated the FET band, that is the further education training band teachers, to migrate to senior phase and teach grade 7s and grade 8 classes. Hence, we have teachers who are teaching out of phases and grades. Such challenges, as well coined by the intended outcome, identify and diagnose some of the major issues and challenges that lead to teacher shortages, to include perspectives from countries from different regions and with different income levels, as well as providing a focus on equity and emergencies or crises. To achieve the above, the following measures have been put in place by education planners. First one, development and use of tools such as Education Management Information System, EMIS, and this is to help planners better understand issues of supply and demand for teachers. The second one, development of strategies to attract more teachers into the profession. In this regard, in South Africa, we have the Funza Lushaka Bursary Scheme, which is meant to attract young teachers into the teaching profession based on the needs identified in terms of the EMIS system. The third one is to improve teacher salaries and working conditions. Fourth, use contracted teachers to deal with immediate needs, although a longer-term approach is necessary to address shortages. South Africa has enacted laws such as the Labour Relations Act that guarantees employee rights and privileges as accorded in our Constitution. This enables teachers to belong to trade unions, and have access to organizational rights. The law also makes provision for the creation of structures such as bargaining councils, where teachers are engaged on an ongoing basis through their unions on how to improve their salaries and working conditions. We must also improve teacher professionalism by expanding opportunities for teachers' professional development and the use of more collaborative approaches such as peer mentoring and support. We in South Africa have established a professional council for teachers and enacted it in legislation. The council has a legislative responsibility to keep a register of all aspiring and practicing teachers, to manage a system of continuing teacher professional development, as well as the development as well as to develop and manage a code of professional ethics. This council is therefore leading the professionalization agenda in collaboration with the ministry and also other stakeholders. It is also important to include teachers in decision-making across all levels of the system. Giving teachers more voice will improve their confidence and motivation, which will in turn improve their performance. Expanding opportunities for teacher upward mobility and career pathing, and ensuring a more equitable distribution of teachers, take into account the rural and the urban disparities, different socioeconomic backgrounds, but also gender disparities is also essential. For example, we are prioritizing new graduates from the Funza Lushaka Bursary Scheme to deploy them in vacancies across the country. Areas struggling to recruit qualified teachers benefit from these newly qualified teachers, thereby addressing issues of equity. Incentives are also implemented to retain these teachers in hard-to-teach areas. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa is dedicated to the UNESCO program and the African Union Agenda 2063 by prioritizing quality training over addressing quantitative shortages for prospective teachers. This is achieved through the effort of the 24 public universities and the Department of Higher Education and Training. To tackle the worldwide shortages of teachers, a comprehensive strategy is needed that focuses on improving, diversifying, and embracing the teaching profession. Let us commit to working together to create a safe and inclusive learning environment for young children, while also recognizing the important role that is played by our teachers. As policymakers and leaders, it is our responsibility to attract and retain exceptional educators. I also believe, Program Director, that a key component of any effective education system is the ability to recruit and to maintain a workforce of highly qualified teachers. Again, let me reiterate my gratitude to the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030 through UNESCO for co-hosting the 14th Policy Dialogue Forum. As a public sector We are looking forward to the discussion on investigating common challenges leading to teacher shortages, tackling shortages with strategic policies related to recruitment, training, and retention, and also exploring future transformative strategies to validate and reinforce teaching as a profession to reduce global teacher shortages. I have high hopes that by the time this conference is over, we will have developed a more effective method or effective methods and strategies that will get us closer to achieving our Sustainable Development Goal, SDG 4, of ensuring inclusive and equitable education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities. On behalf of the government of South Africa and the people of South Africa, I wish you well in this conference, and I hope that you will come up with solutions that will take us forward. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you to the Deputy President of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to acknowledge and apologize that the programs that you have slight changes to it. So if you see some slight changes, please understand. We will highlight to you where those changes are at. The Deputy President has another engagement, so we had to change the program a bit, so apologies for that. The second part that is important, while our choir is coming on stage, as I welcome the Deputy Minister on stage, the reason why the Office of the President is here is not just for symbolic reasons. The Teachers Transform campaign of the TTF places teachers at the center of transformation. If governments want and are serious and are committed to transformation, children don't just become racist. The linguicism out there does not just happen. If teaching and teachers are given the dignity that they deserve, and a commitment from government is what we have just got now, this is why it is important that we place the teacher agenda high up on the government agenda. We'll ask the Deputy Minister, Dr. Regina Mohaule, to thank the Deputy President for us and the Presidency. Thank you.
Program Director, Deputy Director General, Mem Bute, all protocol observed as it was established. I don't want to leave anyone behind without having been recognized. You are all very important, and as South Africa, we take this event very, very important. That's why the Deputy President himself is here. As Dr. Mbute indicated, that it's not just a symbolic, it's a commitment of South African government to education and to teachers of South Africa and the globe. So, Deputy President, thank you very much for taking time in your very busy schedule. We know that you were not prepared for this as we expected the President to be here, but due to unforeseen circumstances, you were able to come into the space, and want to really, as the sector, as education, to say thank you very much. And this is indeed the 14th TTF, and where we are going to discuss issues of education across the globe. And want to appreciate, on behalf of the House, all of us collectively, to say Thank you, and thank you to you. Thank you very much.
As we are going to have the choir, the Minister of Basic Education will accompany the Deputy President on his way out. But I also do want to acknowledge the current President of Education International, Ms. Susan Hopgood. As we were doing the acknowledgements, I think her name was left out. Thank you. Over to you, sir. can stand up and move with them in true South African style. Ngenxa yami liwalapha kade kuze ndizifihle kuwe ngebali kaYesu kuze ndizifihle kuwe ngebali kaYesu wakasulwa ngenxa yami liwalapha kade wakasulwa ngenxa yami liwalapha kade kuze ndizifihle kuwe ngebali kaYesu kuze ndizifihle kuwe ngebali kaYesu wakazulwa ngenxa yami liwalapha kade wakazulwa ngenxa yami liwalapha Enkosi siyabonga. You wouldn't be in South Africa if you didn't move. That's what we taught today. Let's give them a round of applause. You can imagine if these children didn't have teachers. We just had to allow that moment, Mr. Rabutapi. It's a very emotional moment for some of us. Because in Africa, when something goes wrong, when a child does something wrong, the question is always, who was the teacher of this child? Because it reflects. So our hopes as parents and the nation are on teachers. So kudos once more for the TTF. We are now going to go back to our program and invite messages of support to the TTF, underscoring teaching as a lifelong profession, and anyone in a lifelong profession needs lifelong learning opportunities. We all know that the AU, the African Union, has declared this year as the Year of Education. We will call upon a video clip of Ms Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, for the recorded message that she gives to this TTF forum. I'm sure that we are ready with that. Are we ready with the recorded message?
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, each and every one of us can see that our world is experiencing a period of dramatic change. From the climate crisis to rising conflict, from growing inequalities to dramatic technological developments and a worrying breakdown in trust and social cohesion. At times like these, our world needs education more than ever. And that is why the African Union has designated 2024 their year of education. We know the education of the past will simply not cut it for the needs of today or tomorrow. The Secretary-General convened the Transforming Education Summit in September 2022. The summit helped elevate the issue of education transformation on the global agenda, mobilize greater commitment to deliver SDG 4 at the country level, and expand the global movement for a reimagined education. Central to quality and relevant education for all is a transformed teaching profession. The teaching profession is struggling in three key areas. First, there are simply not enough teachers. UNESCO estimates that at least 44 million more teachers are needed to deliver on SDG 4. Second, the teachers that are working in the system are working in an under-resourced and difficult condition. And third, most teachers have not been equipped with the learning methods and tools to thrive in a rapidly changing learning environment, from engaging with digital learning to imparting 21st century knowledge and skills in ways that cherish and leverage the world's rich and diverse cultures. The Secretary-General established a high-level panel on the teaching profession because these challenges cannot be overcome by doing more of the same. The panel was tasked with providing a new vision for the teaching profession and a clear plan of action to make that vision a reality. And I'm honored to launch the panel's report and recommendations with you today. The report provides a powerful global call to action. It includes a series of recommendations to arrive at a teaching profession that embraces a new role for teachers as part of a team of facilitators and enablers of the acquisition of knowledge, values, and learning. It puts forth a series of practical recommendations. They call for elevating the status and dignity of teachers, improving working conditions for teachers, and promoting diversity and inclusion, and creating national commissions to tackle teachers' shortages. They address poor resourcing by calling for investment in teachers, investing in their security, in their working conditions, and reflecting teachers' voices in policy decisions. Finally, they call for re-imaging the role of teachers by developing leadership skills, fostering innovation, harnessing the digital technological revolution, establishing professional teaching standards, and providing quality teacher training and lifelong learning. Allow me to convey my sincere thanks to Presidents Kajulaid and May Weeks for their excellent leadership and guidance, and to all the panel members for their hard work, their passion, and their dedication. I would also like to thank ILO and UNESCO for effectively and ably supporting the panel throughout the last 9 months. The Secretary-General urges Member States to embrace these recommendations and to integrate them into their national efforts to transform education. We also call on the intergovernmental bodies of UNESCO and ILO to jointly update key international recommendations and standards relating to teaching. And we urge teacher unions and teachers themselves to step out of their comfort zones and accompany governments, learners, and young people and other key partners on this journey of transformation. Over the coming months, we will have further opportunities to take these recommendations forward. I look forward to engaging with all of you as we take stock of progress made to deliver on test commitments and keep the promise of SDG 4 at major education convenings in Paris in June and in Brazil in October. It is essential also that we seize the opportunity provided by the Summit of the Future this September and the World Social Summit next year to strengthen global commitment to a well-resourced and transformed education system, underpinned by the kind of teacher that we all dream of and that every learner deserves. I wish you all fruitful discussions and look forward to the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Ms Amina Mohammed. And in UNESCO style, we say shukran in Arabic, gracia in Spanish, merci in French, and thank you in English. But because we share the chairpersonship with Germany, we say Dankeschön and siyabonga, siyabulela, enkosi to Ms Amina. Can we now move to the last speaker that is going to be delivering a message of support on this part before I hand over to my next chair or moderator of the session, Mr. Chakroun. The importance of what we are about to hear now is the fact that of the UNESCO priorities, education is key, and we know that this event is co-hosted jointly by the South African government and UNESCO. It has sent one of its top senior managers, the Assistant Director General for Education in UNESCO. That's how serious UNESCO takes this important initiative. Ms. Stefania Giannini, we welcome her on stage. She is on stage.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Your Excellency, Minister Motshekga, dear Angelina, Your Excellency, dear Commissioner of Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation of the African Union, Professor Belosine, Excellencies, honorable ministers, vice ministers, colleagues, friends, coming from really all the corners of the world. Task today for such an important mission, let's say, valorizing and dignifying the teaching profession, or I would say better, teaching, which is not simply a profession, I would say, but more a unique kind of relationship between human beings, the teacher and the student. And this reminds me to a fantastic book that possibly some of you remember here in this room, which goes back to, if I'm not mistaken, 2005, by the Austrian philosopher George Steiner, who's not the Steiner who developed a very well-known pedagogical model, but who dedicated his reflections to the lessons of the masters. And this book, published by Harvard publishers, says that teaching is a kind of sacred obligation, where students sometimes find their real momentum in life. And that's where children, youth, can be inspired to find their own pathway for unlock their potential. And what we are tasked today is really to focus on this special, unique relationship. And I will come later to this point. We have some ideas at UNESCO we already share with some dear friends and colleagues here, including DSG, Ms Amina Mohammed, who focus very well on the problems and some of the solutions. But first of all, I wish to really deeply thank the government of South Africa, through its Ministry of Basic Education, for generously hosting this event together with the Secretariat of the Teachers Task Force, hosted by UNESCO, and to be so committed, starting from the higher level of the representatives of the government, the Deputy Vice President, Matsie, who's with us today. Well, from UNDSG, Amina, we already heard about two key elements that can frame our discussions this week. First, that a transformed teaching profession lies at the very heart of quality and relevant education for all. And yet, we must also recognize that the teaching profession is struggling in very many very many ways, profound ways. Education systems worldwide are grappling with the concerning decline in the attractiveness of the teaching profession alongside a severe, unprecedented shortage of educators on a global scale. The first global report on teachers, which is a joint effort by ILO and UNESCO and the Teachers Task Force, being launched today, helps us understand the scale of the shortage with new data and evidence. To give you a sense of the magnitude of the scale, some figures are very well known, some figures were already being presented at the launch of the 2024 year for education of the African Union last week in Addis. We need 44 million more primary and secondary teachers by 2030, out of which 15 million in Africa. Between 2015 and 2022, attrition rates for primary education teachers nearly doubled. And the report also underscores the urgent need for sustainable financing of education, the integration of technology into teaching practices, and the transformation of teacher education into a lifelong collaborative process. Against this backdrop, this year's forum, the 14th Policy Dialogue Forum, will help us, for sure, understand the complex, unique nature of the teacher shortage, its root cases and consequences, and also strategies, which is the most important part of the story, to address them effectively. We gather here policymakers, experts, stakeholders from 5 continents to exchange good practices, strategies, and data, and thank you very much for making it possible and taking the time to join us. But while focusing on shared concerns, we shall seek concrete policy solutions to dignify, valorize, and diversify the teaching profession. I think the second part of the title of the forum, let me say, is possibly the most important one. The recommendation of the UN Secretary General's high-level panel on the teaching profession, which I had the privilege and the honor to join, representing UNESCO, together with colleagues from the International Labour Organization and Education International, will be the second major outcome of this forum. We are going to present officially the recommendation today, as you know. And I'm sure that the high-level panel's insight and guidance will be pivotal in steering our efforts to strengthen and elevate the teaching profession. We already heard something from Amina Mohammed, and we'll have a special session in a few minutes focusing on that. Finally, the forum will serve as a platform for networking, regional meetings, facilitating collaboration and sharing best practices, which are already running in many regions and countries of the world. This morning, I'm honored to welcome distinguished ministerial representatives and esteemed partners who will discuss strategies for enhancing the attractiveness of the teaching profession and promoting collaboration at both national and international levels. Well, the recommendations, global report findings, and your deliberations will inform our agenda for the Transforming Education Summit follow-up, which is our common roadmap from now to 2030. But as I said at the beginning of my short remarks, we have to find a way to really make the difference and to recognize globally this unique relationship between two special kind of human beings, the teacher and the students. And this is something cannot be found through or simply through policies and education systems reforms, cannot be found possibly through new important investment, which are very much needed, absolutely. We need something which can really give the sense that the entire global community, the world, actually recognizes that teaching and learning are two sides of the same coin, and it's about transmission of knowledge which becomes wisdom based on trust and love. And this is something that possibly in machine learning, the most sophisticated we can imagine now, as we have very good examples of, tentatively replacement of teachers in the classroom, cannot make it. To that end, I wish to invite my colleagues at UNESCO, this was not in my script, by the way, so please, we'll talk that later, to seriously consider the possibility to propose its member states' decision, it's not the Secretariat decision, as we all know, the teaching profession, or better, the unique relationship between teachers and students as something which belongs to our shared humanity, as an heritage from the past, as most importantly, as the most powerful, transformative heritage for the future. This is something can possibly be done. There is a pathway to go through. I know some countries are keen to make their own proposals, as we know that in all different contexts, this book I mentioned from George Steiner is bringing a lot of nice examples from Confucius, school in education vision, to Socrates in the Western, to India and many other continents, including Africa. So I'm pretty sure that this universal, unique relationship can be something we have to discuss and work as a cultural heritage, maybe in the near future. I thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful discussion in this policy forum.
Thank you very much, Ms Giannini. Thank you. As I round up my part, about to hand over to the second moderator, I just want to also thank the opportunity, Minister, UNESCO and everyone for the part that I had this morning. I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister Sampunan. Good morning, bonjour, buenos dias, sabah al-khair, ahlan wa sahlan. This is a session where we will be launching the high-level panel recommendations, and we'll be looking at what are the key recommendations that are coming, what are the lessons that we are taking from the deliberation, also the way forward that we would like to take with these recommendations. And you may ask, where is the publication and where are the recommendations? You'll find them outside, but you have to stay first to listen to our speakers. And as we are in a twin transition of digital and green, we decided that our panel will be a hybrid one. So we have speakers in the room, but we will have also speakers online or the video. And to reduce the footprint of our session, we have a speaker from the south and from Australia, and we have a speaker also from the north, from Paris. In a way, we spread a bit the footprint of our session as well. So let me first ask the president of Education International to join us on the stage, and welcome you, Susan Hopgood. So in preparing this session, of course, thank you, Commissioner. Who else better than the co-chair or representative of the co-chair to speak? and present the high-level panel recommendation. Who else better than the co-secretariat, the Assistant Director General of UNESCO, Madame Stefania Giannini, and Assistant Director General of ILO, Ms. Manuela Tomei. And of course, the voice of teachers, the representative of teachers, represented by the President of Education International, Ms. Susan Hopgood. I think we have listened to several of the points that are coming in the high-level panel recommendations. Madame Giannini referred to the diversification, valorization, and to the importance of giving teachers a lifelong learning perspective and being a lifelong learner, technology as an important factor, but particularly, and I take the point of the importance of valorizing the relationship between teachers and learners, and in a way considering as a humanity and as part of our common good and our common humanity. And when I look at my own mother tongue, and as we say in Arabic, and I know that most of you don't have the earphones closed, but in Arabic we say, كاد المعلم أن يكون رسولا. That means teacher is almost a prophet. And that's about valorizing the teaching profession. It's about considering as a human and a very important and almost a belief in the relationship between teachers and learner. So colleagues, without further ado, I would like to ask, and we will have different moments. We will alternate between speakers online or videos and speakers in the room. And we'll start with Ms. Kirsty Kalyulet, co-chair of the high-level panel and former president of the Republic of Estonia, with the video message, please.
Dear friends, last year I had the honor of chairing, together with the former president of Trinidad and Tobago, Her Excellency Paula May Weeks, the Secretary General's high-level panel on the teaching profession. Our panel was fantastic. It included teachers, politicians, education managers from all over the world. They were a truly inspiring set of people to work with, and we are both very grateful to them. Of course, the challenge facing us globally in education is quite big. As this important global dialogue forum will discuss in detail, there is an ongoing and even worsening crisis in teaching today, because we simply do not have enough teachers. The 59 recommendations of the panel address this because we want our children to have the best people teaching them the best way, using the best methodologies and also the best technologies. This is not cheap. This is not easy. Therefore, the panel recommends that each and every nation should spend at least 6% of their GDP on education. With less, it is doubtful that any country can achieve what we want collectively to achieve, the better future for our children. Please allow me to underline 3 key themes. One is indeed investing in education. I spoke about the need, but I would also say that how this money is spent is extremely important. Salaries, yes. Support for teachers, yes. Also building technology, which needs to be there at the school level, but never forgetting that technology is not going to make our children better human beings. This is the role of society. This is the role of classmates, classroom, the school space, the teachers, to make our kids compassionate human beings. Because this is the only true advantage of being a human in 21st century. All the boring jobs in the future will be done by AI and technology. We have to remain compassionate human beings, close to each other, able to communicate. This is such an important part of education. We need to support the evolving role of the teacher. Teachers need training and they need support because the world is constantly changing around them. They need to relearn, they need to teach differently during their work career, work life. This is not easy, and also this costs time and money. they need to have it. They need support to play a key role in promoting good citizenship, sustainability, peace and democracy. And the teaching profession should be built on the foundation of decent work, including stable contracts, safe, healthy workplace, balanced workloads, adequate social protection. Of course, all things are not tangible. There are also intangible aspects of the profession, like the respect of the society, respect of women, respect for varied cultural backgrounds, different aspects of teaching refugee kids, different aspects for refugee teachers teaching refugee kids, the difficulties to match the local needs and traditions in the country where they now find themselves. All these elements will decide whether teachers feel comfortable making our children the best citizens we can hope. We also need to promote the human-centered approach to all technology. There is no doubt that technology is a transformative factor in our education, but it doesn't come easily to all teachers. We need to help them and support them. To implement these recommendations, the panel calls on the United Nations system to consider further normative action on teachers. This is a challenging endeavor, and I encourage governments and relevant stakeholders to begin discussing such a possibility and also channeling ideas and interest through the relevant UN partners and bodies. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all the members of our panel, I want to thank the International Teacher Task Force and the government of South Africa for launching the recommendations of the panel. I urge all stakeholders to read, discuss, and above all, implement them in appropriate national contexts. To construct a more peaceful and sustainable world, we need education. And to have education, we need teachers. Thank you for listening.
Thank you to Ms. Kersti Kaljulaid, the co-chair of the high-level panel and former president of the Republic of Estonia. Let me now invite my Assistant Director General, Stefania Giannini, to share her perspective on the high-level panel recommendation. Please, Madam Giannini.
Thank you so much, Borhene. Once again, happy to be with you and to now move to deep dive on this important first outcome of this conference, which is the outcome of a process launched, as you all know, by the Secretary General last year, alongside, as part of the follow-up to the Transforming Education Summit. Well, the recommendations put forth by the high-level panel, we know serve now as a roadmap to guide our collective efforts towards achieving SDG 4. They underscore the urgent need to accelerate progress towards inclusive quality education, and they reaffirm education's pivotal role in fostering sustainable development and promoting social cohesion. In this context, let me focus on a few important key topics that the recommendations are highlighting. Number one, societies must create conducive learning environments by investing in essential public services like education, prioritizing the welfare of public servants like teachers, and fostering supportive conditions for teachers, learners, parents, and community. Second point, governments should embrace a comprehensive and integrated national teacher policies that encompass aspects like recruitment, deployment, professional development, career advancement, working conditions, and teacher compensation. This is something I'm quite sure that the president of Education International, Susanna, will come back. The third point, these policies should be formulated through inclusive social dialogue. This is an important point. It's about the how, involving representative teacher associations and consultations with various stakeholders. This is something already happening in many countries, but not everywhere. Furthermore, number 4, in line with UNESCO Futures of Education report, which calls, as you know, for a new social contract for education, the recommendations underscore the importance of empowering teachers to become knowledge producers, facilitators, and mentors, fostering experiential and inquiry-driven learning, encouraging problem-solving skills, and going, let's say, beyond the traditional conventional role which teachers still have in many countries. And this calls for a deep transformation of the teaching profession, profile, and standards. Fifth point is about training. It's a very, very well-known topic, I know. I'm preaching the converted here about the importance of training, but despite that point, let me say, so many countries still miss a very robust, solid approach to training in service. So let me emphasize this point. Teachers will need the training and support to shoulder new responsibility in doing their job in the classroom, through that, in promoting sustainability, peace, and democracy. Because at the end of the day, this is the real outcome. It seems so far, but it's not at all. Number 6, teachers deserve working conditions that ensure stable contracts, a safe and healthy workplace, manageable teacher-to-student ratios, balanced workloads, sufficient social protection, and retirement benefits, flexible working programs, and arrangements that promote both rest and work-life balance. I'm pretty sure that implementing this point will be a very good contribution to make the profession more attractive in the world. Number 7, teachers require autonomy and pedagogical freedom in leveraging technology and their pedagogies to enhance learning outcomes. This is the point related to academic freedom, broadly speaking, which is an important point from early childhood to university level. It's crucial when it comes to technology, for sure, to maintain the human connection between teachers and students, ensuring technology supplements but never replaces it, as I already mentioned and expressed my thoughts on this point before. Number 9, the recommendations also encompass policies to promote equity and diversity within the teaching workforce. This is the meaning of diversifying the profession we put in the title. Providing support for teachers in crisis situations, including those who are refugees, integrate sustainability education, foster leadership among educators, and address various other critical aspects of the teaching professions. Today in the world, we know we have 222 million refugees, students who are not in a proper education system. So the teachers, they have the responsibility to accompany their learning pathway must be supported in a different and stronger way than it happens so far. Number 10, at the core of this recommendation lies a clear message to enhance education financing, acknowledging its vital role in addressing systemic challenges and fostering transformative change. In this context, the high-level panel emphasized that funding for public education should be ensured at the minimum of 6% of GDP and 20% of total government spending, which is actually +2 and +5 compared to the previous standards and benchmarks, as we all know. The global report on teachers we are also presenting today reveals that up to 75% of all educational expenditure in low and lower middle income countries goes to teacher costs. Our new projections estimate the cost of financing the new teachers needed to reach universal primary and secondary education targets reach some $120 billion annually, which is a lot, but it's very much needed because it's about investment and not it's about expenditure. Let me highlight this point. In Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa alone, an additional budget of approximately 79% of current expenditure is needed. Now, what next? Which are the areas of actions collectively we have to take seriously as we are doing from this forum? Let me mention at least 3 of them. First, the endorsement of the recommendation by the high-level panel emphasized the critical importance of multilateral cooperation in advancing the teaching profession. It's not a standing-alone organization job. That's why it's so important ILO and UNESCO going together. That's why it's so important Education International being very much co-creating this agenda. That's why it's so important when it goes to Africa, Mr. Commissioner, that the 2024 years is focusing also on this topic. And thanks for making the time to come here to valorize this very first, I would say, global meeting, which is a good kickoff of the 2024 years and for education, and I take the opportunity to wish you all the best. And through these platforms like the Joint ILO-UNESCO Committee of Experts on the application of the recommendation concerning the teaching profession, it's very long, say art is better, we remain steadfast in providing guidance and supporting all countries which want to implement accordingly. And the second point is about monitoring the progress of country commitments to the Transforming Education Summit. We know that we have built a dashboard which is now providing us quantitative and quality data about commitments and actions against the commitments. We'll be able to take stock of all of these in June in Paris. We'll be able to save the date and communicate it in a few weeks, hopefully. Well, in these commitments, I can ensure that teachers' policies are on the top of the list. So it's so important that we continue to monitor, but we also continue to see not only commitments, but actions which are really making the change on the ground. And this is also monitoring progress, including through the benchmarking exercise that countries are actually doing under the leadership or the guidance of our colleagues of the GEMA report. Third point, we welcome the launch of the inaugural Global Report on Teachers, which is providing new, fresh data, but most importantly, are very much converging and aligned with the recommendations of the high-level panel. And this is very good because it's a sign, let's say, from different sources of going to the same results. Well, that's in a nutshell, really, the sense, the meaning of this important initiative, and you can really count on UNESCO to be part actively and with a strong commitment more than ever to this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you to ADG Giannini for giving us more granular analysis of the recommendation, but also the roadmap toward the implementation of those recommendations and the milestones in Paris, the high-level steering committee in New York, of course, with the Summit of the Future, and in late October, early November, on the Global Education Meeting in Brazil. Let me now move to the next co-secretariat of the high-level panel, the ILO, and represented by Ms. Manuela Tomei, Assistant Director General at ILO, and we'll have a video message from her side.
On behalf of the ILO Director General Gilbert Humbo, it is my honor to address this Policy Dialogue Forum and launch the recommendations of the UN Secretary General's High-Level Panel on the Teaching Profession. I wish to thank the Teacher Task Force and the Government of South Africa for hosting the launch of the recommendations, and Presidents Kalulaid and Wickes for their leadership, and all panel members for the delivery of these timely and important recommendations. I also wish to thank the Secretary General's Office and UNESCO for their unfailing collaboration on this initiative. The work of the panel is the most significant international initiative on teachers and teaching since the adoption of the ILO UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers in 1966. It sets out a roadmap of actions at national level to address the urgent crisis in the teaching profession and the teacher shortages facing many parts of the world. The ILO stands ready to support the implementation of the recommendation with its partners. Supporting teachers goes beyond ensuring the achievement of education goals. Late last year, the ILO launched an important coalition for the promotion of social justice. Conflict, technological change, environmental degradation, demographic shifts, and other challenges threaten to throw the world into further chaos and instability. Education is the key for solving these many and conflating crises. Teachers are the backbone of education, and decent jobs for teachers are essential to quality education. There can be no social justice without teachers.
Thank you to Ms. Manuela Tomei for sharing her perspective and the ILO voice with us today. And now, without further ado, let me invite the President of Education International, the voice of teachers, Ms. Susan Hopgood, to share with us the perspective of Education International, please.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Excellencies, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of Education, distinguished guests, my teacher union colleagues and friends around the room. A little more than a year ago, at the United Nations, something remarkable was set in motion. Global education leaders, including a delegation led by Education International, convened at the Transforming Education Summit to confront the stark realities of the global education crisis. A shortage of 44 million teachers, education system resources down in 65% of low and middle income countries and 33% of upper middle and high income countries since the start of the pandemic. And literally half the world's population living in countries that spend more on debt interest payments than on education or health. At the urging of EI and others, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres assembled a UN high-level panel to examine the role of teachers and education systems. The need for more high-quality teachers with the accountability that we need throughout the systems to do our work. And we owe a debt of gratitude to both ILO and UNESCO for their commitment to the convening of this panel and for their essential engagement in its work. And also, thank you to the Government of South Africa for hosting this event. With the release of this unanimously agreed upon set of recommendations, it's no exaggeration to say that we've achieved a breakthrough. In fact, there has never been a moment like this. The UN has spoken with one voice, urging governments to act decisively to address the global education crisis, by elevating and transforming the role and status of the teaching profession. For the well-being of students, our communities and our countries, governments must increase investment in public education systems and invest in teachers if we are to recruit and retain the qualified teachers our students need and deserve. In addition to investing in professionally competitive salaries and decent working conditions, the scourge of insecure work must be reversed. Trust in and respect for teachers and their professional expertise must be elevated to the rightful place. This trust is the foundation of a framework of collaboration, including collective bargaining, that the panel said must be the principal means for developing policies on education, teaching and the teaching profession. That framework should include national commissions, including relevant financial authorities, representatives of teacher organisations and others to immediately tackle shortages of adequately trained teachers. The panel also called on teacher organisations to develop, implement and monitor professional standards for teachers to hold the profession accountable to the highest standards, while urging governments to begin phasing out the use of contract teachers and the hiring of unqualified teachers to fill teacher shortages. Responding to the growing emergency status of some education systems, the panel also called for the establishment of a global fund for teachers in emergencies to provide payment of salaries of teachers working in crisis-affected contexts, and urged that international financial institutions end all public sector wage bill constraints and austerity measures that have severely depressed education spending globally. The UN's commitment to government investment in education systems and professional educators has never been stronger. At the same time, the global commitment to equity in finance and educational opportunity for every student has never been clearer. This is historic. For the first time in any of our lifetimes, there is a global agreement, not only about the challenges facing education systems, but also about the full partnership of the teacher profession and the specific steps all of us need to take in concert to make real progress. This is the heart of EI's global campaign, Go Public Fund Education, mobilising and organising for a new social contract that connects the crisis in funding and in the teaching profession to the sustainable world we want to create. Nowhere is that equation more relevant than on this continent. A report released earlier this month by the Tax and Education Alliance noted that nearly 19 million girls are out of school in Africa. And why? A good part of the reason is a lack of teachers, of infrastructure and support. The study said that each year, Africa loses the equivalent of $29 billion of education finance due to excessively low tax rates and aggressive tax avoidance by the wealthiest companies and individuals. Recovering these funds to the public sector would be enough to put all of these girls back to school. With 373 member organisations in 180 countries and territories, representing 32 million teachers and other educators, Education International is a proud and active member of the Tax Ed Alliance. And EI's Africa Region Director, Tiana Signolo, spoke for all of us when he said in this report that African governments should take immediate policy, legislative and financing measures to end the teacher shortage. In line with EI's global Go Public Fund Education campaign, we do call on all African Union member states to ensure that every African child is taught by a qualified, supported and motivated teacher with decent salaries and working conditions. And we need to take full advantage of the opportunity provided by the African Union's Year of Education this year to achieve this. Colleagues, there can be no doubt that the world's young people are coming of age in a protracted period of existential crises. Among the lessons we are learning in this historical turning point is that the challenges facing education systems and the teaching profession are inseparable. Only universal access to education can equip this generation to meet this challenge, and only deliberate, well-resourced, professionally staffed and nationally prioritised teaching force can guarantee the quality required. The world recognised this nearly a decade ago with the establishment of the Sustainable Development Goals, including Goal 4, calling for inclusive and equitable quality education for all. And as we move ever closer to the 2030 deadline to meet these goals, the panel's recommendations are a sort of a GPS, a global positioning system, giving us practical and achievable steps for cooperation, collaboration and success in the coming months and years. At the same time, failure to recruit, develop and retain the teachers we need and fund the systems required imperils sustainable development more broadly with each passing year. So we join with Secretary-General Guterres as a federation of member organisations around the world and through our international campaign Go Public Fund Education in welcoming these unprecedented recommendations and accepting the challenge to take up what he calls a powerful global call to action. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for these very strong words and recalling the importance of investing in teachers, but also as teachers involved in social dialogue and collective bargaining, to use the term you like. Colleagues, Carlos and his team gave me an impossible mission, is to sum up all the discussion and the high-level panel recommendation, which is very difficult to do in 2 minutes. But I think in all the discussion we had since the beginning, since the speech of the Honourable Vice President, the Honourable Minister of Basic Education of South Africa and all the speakers, there are, I would say, some parameters of the transformation, an element of the transformation of the teaching profession that are coming very strongly. And let me mention 5 of them. First, for diversifying, for valorizing, for ensuring that the teaching profession is a profession that attracts young people, that maintain teachers in the profession, we have to consider the teaching profession as a collaborative profession and a lifelong learning endeavor that facilitate capacity building and professional development and career development. Second, we have to consider the working conditions of the teaching profession and elevate those working conditions to the right level that they merit in terms of the wages, but also in terms of the possibilities for engaging in much more motivating profession. The third, the profession will be impacted by the technology and has to leverage the technology in a way that it can improve the efficiency, it can improve the impact of the learning and teaching process. But with the technology, we have to consider and preserve the human-centered dimension of the teaching and learning of the profession. And Madame Giannini mentioned that in her call for considering this as a common human heritage, and that we need to preserve, but we need to develop. But probably, and I would like to finish with, to please Education International, nothing about teachers without teachers. That's about social dialogue, that's about involving teachers in the policy making. And I think the word is very strong, but it's very important in this case. And of course, this has to be underpinned by investment that is efficient, equitable, and sustainable. Those are the key elements, but obviously, if you want to know more about the high-level panel recommendations, the publication is outside, and you can pick up some of the hard copies that we brought here. And thanks to ILO colleagues who made that effort to print the high-level panel recommendations. Let me thank our speakers today. Let me start by thanking Minister Angie for her, Angie Motshekga, for Minister of Basic Education, for her welcoming word. Thank Commissioner Borhene for his participation in this panel. Thank Ms. Susan Hopgood for her participation, and of course, Madame Stefania Giannini. And I would like to suggest that you take a seat in front. And we'll move to the next session. While we are looking, and Madame Giannini mentioned that we have a twin, I would say, output or a twin flagship that we are launching today, the high-level panel recommendations, but also the global report on the teaching profession, the first ever report on the global teaching profession that we are publishing. And for that, I would like to ask my colleague Carlos Vargas, Chief of UNESCO Section for Teacher Development, Head of the Secretariat of the International Teacher Task Force, to present for us the outcomes of and the recommendation of the report. Thank you very much. No, you can't.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, colleagues and friends. I'm very happy to present an overview of the first ever global report on teachers that has been produced by UNESCO and the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030, with the kind support of the Hamdan Foundation for Medical and Educational Sciences and the concourse of many TTF partners, donors, including France, Norway, and Germany. But before beginning this presentation, I would like to acknowledge the hard work of the TTF Secretariat and UNESCO Section for Teacher Development, who made this possible, together with the brilliant work of numerous researchers and centers, institutes, ministries that carried out a state-of-the-art research around teacher shortages and the status and the attractiveness of the teaching profession. This research was carried out around the world, and what I will be able to present to you are just but fragments of the wealth of information, of examples that countries have put together around the world to address the issue of teacher shortages, and which you will be able to find in the report that has been delivered to you in your bags. So let me begin by sharing with you a little bit of the inspiration and a little bit of the purpose of this global report. As has been mentioned, the global report has a particular function, which is monitoring progress of the international community towards the achievement of SDG 4, particularly the target relating to teachers, target 4.C. So we aim to publish this report every 2 years so as to keep track of the progress that countries make in the commitment to substantially increase the supply of qualified teachers, as is stated in the framework for action of SDG 4. In terms of inspiration, the global report that you will be able to read draws from, of course, the international normative instruments inspired by a human rights-based approach and UNESCO's humanistic vision of education. As has been mentioned before, the report draws from the outcomes of the Commission of the Futures of Education that UNESCO convened and whose report was published in 2001. As was mentioned as well by our director, it calls to recast education as a collaborative profession and with lifelong learning in the center. Working conditions, the status, the engagement of teachers in decision-making are some of the motors behind this publication. As our Assistant Director General, Madame Giannini, has mentioned as well, this also follows the Transforming Education Summit. As you know, the commitment of the global community made in New York, in which teachers play a central role. And the follow-up, of course, of those recommendations will be made possible in as much as we have data to monitor and to track progress, and that we can promote international collaboration for the achievement of SDG 4 altogether with the teachers in the driving seat. So the report is produced with a conviction that teachers are crucial for education and SDG 4, but yet global teacher shortages persist. As you know, they impact education systems, they have an impact on the workload, the working conditions of teachers, and they compromise education quality. As you will be able to see in this slide, and this is a figure that you have probably read in the news, that you have heard from when it was launched last November, and which made global media. Globally, the world needs 44 million more teachers in primary and secondary education if we want to achieve universal education in both levels by 2030. As has been mentioned before, Sub-Saharan Africa needs 1/3 of that share of teachers, 15 million of them. Shockingly, by 2030, only 4 in 10 countries will have enough teachers for universal primary education, and this drops to fewer than 1 in 5 for secondary education. Based on historical growth rates, fewer than half of all countries, 78 out of 197, are actually expected to achieve the necessary quality teachers for universal primary and secondary education. If we focus on secondary education, you will see that only 15%, 15% of all countries, that is 30 out of 187 that we could survey, are forecasted to meet teacher recruitment targets at the secondary level. This is a challenge of the world. This is not a challenge of the South. We have examples and we have data throughout the report that explain that this is a global challenge. For example, in Europe and North America, only 11 out of 44 countries will meet the target of sustainable teachers throughout 2030. In many countries, primary teacher numbers must increase by over 10% annually, and in some countries, over 20 or 30% for secondary education. As has been mentioned before, there's differences in terms of quality, there's challenges in terms of the class size, in terms of the pupil-teachers ratio that we can see in some countries at 15:1, while in the poorest countries as large as 52 as an average. Teacher salaries, we know, remain unattractive. We know indeed. And in primary education, half of the countries in the world, 50% of the countries in the world, pay teachers less than other professionals in comparable posts. As we know, the working conditions of teachers are the learning conditions of students. Now, to share a couple of the challenges and a couple of the multidimensionality of the phenomenon. As we said, global teacher shortages derive from a plethora of causes, one of which we have already heard is teacher attrition. As we heard our Assistant Director General, teacher attrition has been exacerbating shortages. In just 7 years, the rate has doubled from 4.62 to 9%, as you can see in the table on the left. This, of course, report comes in just out after the COVID-19 pandemic, and that represented many challenges to bring teachers back into the classrooms. We know there were teachers that were lost, there were lives that were lost to the COVID pandemic, but there were huge transformation in education that changed, that transformed deeply the teaching profession, which meant added responsibilities and possibly loss of appeal. There are factors, there are push factors, pull factors, personal factors that one can explore, and that certainly have been explored in the report to explain teacher attrition. Among them, the working conditions, teacher well-being, the remuneration and opportunities for teacher career growth are some of the most important factors why teachers are leaving the profession. Stressful conditions doubles the likelihood of teachers wanting to leave the profession, as has been shown in the Teaching and Learning International Survey of the OECD. In some cases, the expansion of education systems has led to hiring contract teachers under less favorable terms than those in government and in employers. In Cameroon and Senegal, contract teachers account for about 45% and 29%, earning around 81% and 40% of their civil servant counterparts. Respectively, 16% of teachers across the European Union work on contracts for over 1 year. So the issue of contract teachers is as well global. International teacher mobility has intensified, and it has intensified attrition as well, with countries like Canada, Germany, the UK, and the USA hosting many foreign teachers. We have made a study of brain drain in the Caribbean, and we know that many qualified teachers leave their countries in search for better working conditions. There are safety concerns as well, especially in crisis-affected countries. Teaching, as we know, is a gendered profession. We find gender disparities, and they persist not only in attrition. We know that men leave the profession more often than women do. We know that there is a feminization of the teaching profession, which begins in the early years of education. As we look at the proportion of teachers globally in ECCE, in early childhood care and education, we see about 95% is women teachers. But as we move up the ladder of educational levels, teachers begin to disappear. And when we look at science, technology, higher education, not to mention leadership positions and ceiling and glass ceilings, we do have a problem of gender inequality that we need to address. Attrition rates also follow a U-shaped pattern, peaking in early and late career stages. We know that teachers usually leave the profession within the first 5 years, and that has to do as well with the onboarding, with the mentoring that we comfort them or not. Attrition has negative effects, particularly on students, on schools and systems, impacting performance and perpetuating recruitment challenges. Let me just change to the following slide to share with you, as we have said, not only the root causes of teacher shortages, not only the complexity, the multidimensionality, but what we have studied throughout the report are some promising practices. What are some of the levers to reverse teacher shortages? First of all, strategies to address teacher shortages need to include meeting basic requirements as decent paid, improved working conditions, and incentives, as well as enhancing school culture, collaboration, and dialogue. One of the levers certainly is improving salaries and retirement schemes that may contribute to attract and retain teachers in the profession. We have seen examples from Kazakhstan, which doubled teacher salaries between 2020 and 2023, leading to increased teacher support. In Kyrgyzstan, teacher salaries were increased, particularly benefiting rural schools, but faced financial constraints. The Shanghai municipality in China developed a pension plan for teachers at 100% and contributing to post-retirement income. They pay more than any other civil servant. We have also seen how leveraging technology in education can alleviate some of the burdens of teachers with platforms aiding lesson planning, for example, in France, in the Republic of Korea, which provide online platforms with extensive resources that can aid teachers in planning and designing lessons more effectively to better utilize their time and lower workloads. Reducing teaching hours may help to diminish workloads as well, as we have seen, for example, in Chile, where reduced teaching time from 75 to 65% has allowed for more professional development, for more time to reflect within communities of practice. Training, mentoring, psychosocial support have also aided teachers during emergencies and crisis-affected situations and retained them in the profession. That is the case in Kenya, in Cameroon, and in Peru. Programs like Teachers for Teachers in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya improve teaching methods and community belonging. Cameroon and Peru implemented psychological support programs that aid teachers in coping with pandemic effects and create well-being. School, parents, and communities can form committees to protect education and teachers from violence, like we have seen in Liberia, Nepal, Sri Lanka, or Zimbabwe. Initiatives like the Global Coalition to Protect Education from Attack provide technical guidelines for protective measures in schools in this country. And they have partnered with parents, with communities, and society as a whole. Pedagogic school leadership and practices that foster collaboration among teachers and that foster the collaborative work of directors, school leaders, and teachers has contributed to better learning outcomes, as has been shown in UNESCO's ERSE report for Latin America. Distributed leadership as well, as we have seen in Finland, may help to secure teacher professional status. Induction programs for novice teachers and principals are paramount to integrate them into the profession, like we've seen in cases of Scotland, of Cuba, and of Chile. These induction programs are a part of welcoming, as has been mentioned in terms of the Passover, in terms of the intergenerational transmission of a trade. And finally, we have seen teacher management and information systems that aid in equitable teacher deployment, like has been the case in Senegal, in Jordan, and in South Africa. These are some examples that you will find in the report by which teacher management and information systems can actually help deploy teachers equitably in rural areas and through subject areas, linguistic areas, and the such. The teacher management and information systems that UNESCO has supported countries to develop, for example, in Jordan or in Senegal, the Mirador system, are examples of it. Another example is the teacher demographic dividend research project in South Africa that has identified the upcoming challenge of replacing half of all government-employed teachers within the near future. Incentives help attract and retain teachers in remote or underserved areas and address educational inequalities like we have seen, for example, in China and in Ecuador. Incentives like China's Rural Teacher Support Plan and Ecuador's Disadvantaged School Prioritization aim to address educational inequalities and may also help to increase attraction and retention in underserved and remote areas. Balancing the rights and protection of teachers in migration with the needs of departing countries is key. An example here is the Commonwealth Teacher Recruitment Protocol, which balances teacher migration with national education systems, needs, and integrity. In order to transform teaching as an attractive career for all, motivating throughout life, fostering professionalism, encouraging collaboration, and promoting dialogue become important. Building a profession attractive to all must be gender balanced and embrace diversity, as we have seen, for example, in the cases of Austria and Germany, Belgium, Ecuador, and Nepal. As you know, and as was alarmed by the Global Education Monitoring Report already in 2016, only 14% of learners learn in a language that they understand. Only 40% of learners in the world. The diversity includes linguistic, includes gender, includes cultural and social diversity, which we don't see in the workforce of teachers. Austria and Germany, for example, have implemented initiatives to boost female leadership and recruit more men in early childhood education, respectively. Germany doubled men in early childhood education over a dozen years. UNESCO's International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa has developed a toolkit for building gender-responsive pedagogies, and FAWE, a guide for gender-responsive policy planning. The Flemish community of Belgium funded efforts to attract underrepresented groups to teaching, including men, immigrants, and people with disabilities. I Want to Be a Bilingual Intercultural Teacher is the name of an initiative in Ecuador, which increased the total number of applicants for the hard-to-staff schools in indigenous regions in the country. Nepal, for example, promotes visually impaired individuals as teachers, with 40% working in mainstream schools, benefiting students and principals as well. Enhancing teacher motivation through enticing, collaborative, and relevant lifelong learning is something that we've seen in a number of countries. To cite two examples, in Ghana, Transforming Teacher Education and Learning Program, and in Japan's pre-service training and induction known as Lesson Study, foster collaboration and competencies and growth of teachers. The COVID-19 pandemic, as you know, underscored the urgency of integrating technology in education, like artificial intelligence. And for that purpose, UNESCO is developing with a number of partners a competency framework for teachers on the use of artificial intelligence. Yet, teachers need to be trained and prepared to realize any potential gains from technology use, like we have seen in programs in Egypt and in Thailand that aim at equipping teachers with better skills. Enhancing teacher professionalization is crucial for achieving collaborative and innovative education. For that purpose, the African Union Teacher Qualification Framework aims to raise minimum entry requirements to degree level in teacher education. You might remember that was one of the recommendations of the high-level panel, and that has been one of the concerns in terms of elevating the status of teachers, means elevating their qualification at least at higher education level. Another example of, that can help in this direction is the International Standard Classification of Education for Teachers, the ISCET-T, which has been developed by UNESCO and sets a framework for globally comparable teacher training data, potentially leading to a global minimum standard for qualifications. This, as you know, was also discussed a couple of weeks back in Paris at the Global Conference on Statistics. Alternative certification and for contract and community teachers can fill short-term gaps, but they risk a shortage of qualified teachers. Context-tailored strategies have contributed to transitioning them into permanent teaching professions. That is the example of Mexico, Burkina Faso, and Indonesia. Mexico recently regularized 800,000 contract teachers who became eligible for permanent positions after 6 months in the job. Similar steps have been taken in Burkina Faso and Indonesia, where the improved benefits and job securities for contract teachers led to 500,000 of them becoming permanent government staff. Accountability is also an important lever, but accountability is actually a double-edged sword. Accountability regimes can help in the safeguarding of quality, it can help in the professionalization of teachers, it can help in setting goals, but accountability regimes can also be discouraging if they do not take teachers' perceptions and experience into account. We've seen, for example, the autonomy that teachers need to be granted for these accountability regimes to actually work. In Finland, for example, teacher autonomy and reflective professionalism thrives without reliance on standardized tests to assess teacher performance. There are not standard testing, neither is there an inspection service in this country, which, as you know, has very good results in terms of learning outcomes. Education International and UNESCO developed a global framework for professional teaching standards, which can also help to move teachers into these levels of autonomy and professionalization. Careers are very important. Teachers, the idea that teachers don't need to be confined to a classroom, to a subject area for 15 years, which is probably very little attractive. We have seen careers in Lithuania, in Singapore, and in other countries result in actual motivation, career progression, and the diversification of the roles of teachers, including crafting materials, including mentoring other teachers, developing curricula, and so on. Let me just finalize by sharing some of the challenges in terms of data availability. One of the main findings of the report is that we do not have enough data at global level to track the progress of the world in terms of 4.C. Defining teacher shortages varies, and there are conversations that need to be had according some of the nomenclature that we use. What do we mean by trained teacher? What do we mean by qualified teacher? Can we agree on a minimum standard in terms of qualifications that teachers should have? Can teachers participate in that agreement? I will not extend more, but we need more disaggregated data. When one looks at the teacher shortages, one can find that the shortages are of quantity, but also of quality. The shortage can be in a particular subject area. The shortage can be in a particular language or in a particular region. The shortage can be of male teachers, of female teachers in some countries. So we need more disaggregated data that now allow us to track progress globally. And finally, one point on the investment that is needed for the transformation of the teaching profession. First of all, global education expenditure trends show that public education expenditure averaged 4.2% of GDP in 2021. So that is very far from the 6% that our Assistant Director General mentioned this morning. There are funding gaps, and they persist between country and country income groups. The sources of educational financing, luckily, is led by governments, whose allocation constitutes 78%. Donor funds remain crucial, comprising 13% of total expenditure in low-income countries. Nonetheless, as you all know, official development aid has been diminishing in 7% in the last 2 years. I will not expand more. It has been mentioned, but just one last point to say that projections estimate the annual cost of financing new teachers for universal primary and secondary education, as Stefania Giannini mentioned, $120 billion annually. This alone requires nearly $39 billion for sub-Saharan Africa. That means an additional budget of approximately 79%. The last slide is just to say, given the size of the challenge, given the multidimensionality of global teacher shortages that we see in the 5 continents of the world, the responses to global teacher shortages need to be global as well. They go beyond ministries of education, but of course includes them. This includes other ministries, ministries of finance. This includes other sectors, including the social, the private, and other sectors. Action following the Transforming Education Summit and the UN High-Level Panel on the Teaching Profession recommendations will aim to elevate the status of the teaching profession. This report is an urgent call to dignify, diversify, and valorize the teaching profession to address teacher shortages and transform the profession towards a new social contract for education and teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos, and thanks to all the team, thanks to all the researchers, also policymakers, practitioners that have contributed to this very important report. Again, outside in the room, we have also some copies of the report, but of course, the report is downloadable from our website and from the TTF website. Thanks to also all the funding partners that provided support, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Khalifa Swedi for the support that we have received from the Hamdan Foundation, directly earmarked to the global report. This is the way we can also advance our work. Colleagues, we have been sitting for a long time. We will not get the coffee break, but I suggest that you stand up and you greet the persons who are on your right for just a few minutes, and then we will sit down again and continue our session.